Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to this installment of No Money Film School's commentary tracks. Tonight's movie is Back to the Future Part 3. I'm recording this on the same night as I just finished the Part 2 commentary track, just because I was in the mood and I was like, yeah, these films were, done back to back, so why not do the commentaries back to back? Um, so yeah, this film came out in 1990, and it is the franchise's foray into the sci-fi comedy western genre blend. And it's Marty McFly and Doc Brown going back to 1885, and we got Michael J. Fox and we got Christopher Lloyd back, along with Mary Steenburgen as Clara. And we're going to see the Doc fall in love. That's right. This installment is more about Doc than it even is about Marty, which is kind of refreshing. There's a lot about this installment that's refreshing relative to the other one, which I still love the part two, but it's nice to see the series going in a different direction with lots of new stuff, and I think it closes out the series very nicely. I say that Back to the Future is one of the best film trilogies ever, and I still stand by that. And we're going to see just how these filmmakers managed to wrap up the story, and I mean wrap it up definitively. There's actually a piece of paper somewhere where Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis have it in writing that there will not be like another sequel or a remake or a reboot or this or that from this series. Like, it is done, which I'm very, very pleased about, because it means that this series will still have its virginity. It won't be, remade or, redone into oblivion. Now, I know that, there was Back to the Future, the ride. There was the Telltale series games, which was released digitally. I have not partaken in either of those. And I mean, I think those are probably okay, some of those other media, versions. But as far as the movies, as far as the definitive canon, this is it. And I'm really pleased about that. Because too often today we see franchises that are just needlessly resurrected and they get ruined, and they overstay their welcome, and just seems like this one is able to ride off into the sunset, or fly off into the sunset, if you will, off into another time period. Um, but I think this series will remain timeless nonetheless. So let's dive into it, shall we? And again, for reference, I'm watching the 4K of this film that came out in 2020. You can watch it on that or on Blu-ray, DVD, streaming, wherever you get it. I won't be able to show you the movie, but I will do my standard 3, 2, 1 countdown, and you can play the movie along with me because of, copyright and all that. And I'll try and give you some insight from what I know as a filmmaker, and specifically trying to overcome the old number 3 curse, which is very difficult to do with third installments and trilogies, because generally part 3 is never as good. Which I think this film, I think, well, obviously the first one's the best. I think in terms of which one's the second best, you could probably argue for either part 2 or 3 to take that spot. I probably would put number 2 as the second best, but that's not to say this one's bad, not at all. I think it's really strong, and it's a great way to end the series. Um, but anyway, enough of my yakking. Why don't you say we start this thing, shall we? So, 3, 2, 1, play. All right, we are playing now. Now, this film came out in 1990, and as you can see here, we've got a bunch of different Universal logos throughout the ages. This is when Universal debuted their 75th anniversary logo. And this logo is the one that anybody that grew up in the 90s is probably most familiar with. And besides, like, that very first one that we saw, the one with the plane going around the earth, which anybody that saw George Romero's Land of the Dead, they brought that one back. Besides that one, this one's probably my favorite there, that 90s version of it. Um, the new one's all right, but I'm an old school kind of guy. Now, as is tradition at this point, we open up with a little piece of what we saw in the previous one to kind of help set the stage. And we start this time in 1955 because, again, remember that we had to get Marty back to the future once again. And so, yeah, here we go. We open up with what was the climax of the first film. But as we know, the other Marty, the Marty in the black suit, he had to go and say hi to the Doc because guess what? He's stuck in the past again. And his options are pretty few because Doc, in the previous one, he, got himself trapped in 1885 because he got struck by lightning. And, thankfully with this one, for the sake of plot, there's nowhere near as much running around through time. And so therefore we can stay in one place and really get to know it, which was the great advantage of the first one. And in this time, though, it is, for this installment, we're in the year 1885, and so we're 100 years in the past from when the first film begins in 1985. And this is the filmmakers able to, play around with the Western genre. And this was before the West. Actually, no, sorry. It was in the same year as Dances with Wolves, which was credited as revitalizing the Western genre, which had largely been dormant. There had been some exceptions with films like Silverado and stuff like that in '85, but Dances with Wolves and then especially Unforgiven really helped bring the Western back for a time. And now it's largely dormant again. You only really see it on, like, the direct-to-video market and that kind of stuff, or, like, less mainstream fare. Now, you do see stuff like Bone Tomahawk and that kind of stuff. But still, the Western genre is tragically not as common as it once was. But this film came out in the same year as when Dances with Wolves kind of brought it back. And this film manages to have the unique distinction of being a genre fusion. We got Western, we got sci-fi, we got comedy, we got romance, we got a whole bunch of stuff, just like we had in the first one, a genre fusion. And then this opening here is actually pretty quiet. It's pretty easygoing relative to the rest of the series. It's probably the easiest going opening out of all the films. The first one had a pretty easygoing opening, but even then we got a lot of really great exposition that was snuck in. But this one opens up nice and easy. And after all the shit Marty's been through and after all the shit Doc's been through, especially this Doc in 1955, when he's just fainted and, he doesn't know what to make of anything, kind of refreshing that we start off in a more easygoing pace. And it also, I don't know, I'm just looking at it, it's like, that's kind of nice, because this is like a big, summer blockbuster, but it opens up at a pretty easygoing pace. You don't really see that so much anymore. I think also it's partially because we get reintroduced to Doc's house in 1955, which we hadn't seen since the first movie. Because we'd done so much running around in part 2, we hadn't really gotten back here. So I'm sure that's partially it also. Now, we remember some little plot points, like we see the hoverboard. Marty's resting his feet on the hoverboard, which, man, he's had a rough few days, a few days across a whole bunch of timelines. So I think it's also partially that, our characters deserve a little rest before even more crazy shit happens. And it also helps because we get to see a little bit of Howdy Doody coming along here. And you gotta love those old 50s TV sets. Those are not even like the 4K television I'm watching this on now. Obviously, the quality is unparalleled, and the quality on those 50s sets is nowhere near as good as this. But you can't really beat them in terms of aesthetic quality. They look beautiful. And of course, Doc is going there. He's going to town there on his little tape recorder there, and that must have been pretty advanced for 1955. And of course, he doesn't even remember that Marty's still there, Which, again, this is nice to see what 1955 Doc was doing, and, because you can remember 1955 Doc still has to invent the time machine in order for 85 Doc to to even have the time machine to do what he needs to do. Um, but yeah, see, he's still trying to figure out what the hell happened because he fainted. Which again, Christopher Lloyd is on fire in this role in both part 2 and 3. Um, yeah, Marty could come back from the future, and he's like, "Hey, Doc." That's funny. And again, they make good use of the hoverboard there. And oh, I love the fact that they use the organ there for dramatic effect. That's so great. It's like a Christmas Carol or something. Came back from the future. You fainted. I brought you home. That's so funny. Which, yeah, if anything, I think Christopher Lloyd's performance in this one, it might be the best out of all of them. Just because, again, he gets the most to do, and also because you see Doc in love, and that's really what the film's about. It's about the Doc learning how to be in love with someone, and learning, that he is, because he was, devoted to his science and his craft, that he never really got the chance to, find someone that he could, settle down with, or he never really looked hard at it. So this is really what the quest of the film is. I love that gag there with the magnifying glass. That's a good one. Again, we have to catch the audience up on some of the events from part 2. Now, home video in 1990 is getting a little bit more common, but again, it's still always good to know, that you're catching the audience up. Plus, we got to catch the character up here. There's that awesome headdress again, which it doesn't work at all. And yeah, the hover conversion there, which, man, poor 1955 Doc, he's got to be absorbing all this shit. Because a whole lot has happened since, since he sent the other Marty back to the future. Suitable replacement parts will not be invented until 1947, so obviously he can't come back. And you gotta love that, the Doc, despite being kind of a futurist and everything, you gotta love the fact that he takes to the Old West very nicely. And I mentioned in the part 1 commentary, I mentioned that Doc and Marty have a very strong Arthur and Merlin relationship, and nowhere is that more clear than in this one, because when the other Doc in 1885, he is from the future and he knows things that people in 1885 don't know. And then, but which is much like how, like, Merlin, Merlin, he claimed to, like, I'm thinking specifically from, like, the Disney version, I think also from, like, the Once and Future King, like, he claimed to have seen the future, because his perception of time was different from most people. And so, obviously, the Doc, it's the same kind of thing. But this one obviously has a scientific explanation. Oh, that's cute. He thinks he's gonna meet the real Einstein, but yeah, he calls his dog Einstein. That's great, because 1955 Doc thought he was meeting the real Einstein. That's so cute. Which, again, there's some extra weight here because the Doc in 1885 gets shot. Which, again, that adds some extra weight to this thing. Another ticking clock, which that was, again, one of the strengths of part 1. Oh, that's so cute. I love that 1955 Doc is blown away by how well he can write. I love that. I never knew I could write anything so touching. That's funny. Oh yeah, and his dog in 1955 is Copernicus, because obviously he doesn't, dogs don't live that long. But so yeah, I guess he buried the time machine in that cave or whatever, and so that way they could dig it up and get him back home. Yeah, the time vehicle is sealed off in a side tunnel. Which that's a very smart thing for Doc to do, to seal it off, so that way that Marty could get back home. That's a really smart thing, and that allows us to even get Marty back. To save Doc, let alone get back to 1985. Oh, look at that jacket that Marty's wearing. It's got like hooks on it and shit. That's so cute that Copernicus has a little head thingy. Oh yeah, there we go. Jules Verne. Yeah, he references Journey to the Center of the Earth, and that of course is going to be key to establishing his romance with Clara. And again, we get to know a lot more about Doc here than we've ever gotten to know. And I like the fact that this movie really is about him. We get to see him as a vulnerable human being and as someone that is capable of love and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, and again, he's referencing his heroes, Jules Verne, which, this just tells you, kids, if you're an artist, if you're an author or whatever, what you put out in the world, people are going to hopefully look to you as an inspiration, and, you know, it's going to be, hopefully, you leave some kind of positive impact. And there it is. There's the DeLorean. It's up on blocks or whatever, which, can you imagine just how much, which actually we're going to find out exactly how much of the car has worn out. And, yeah, see, it's so short-circuited, the microchip there. And I remember they had to replace the tires too with some '50s tires, which if you look at the DeLorean, the look of it is very wonky, because the tires in 1955 are not the same as 1985 tires. No wonder this circuit failed. It says made in Japan. What are you talking about, Doc? All the best stuff is made in Japan. Unbelievable. Yeah, because yeah, see, the tires are rotted away. Which I mean, I guess in 1955 that the Japan, because they were still bouncing back from World War II when we bombed the shit out of them with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It took them a while to get back up to speed, but boy did they bounce back, and they became a technological powerhouse even in the 80s, let alone today. Oh yeah, and here we go with the newspaper archives again. No one should know too much about their own destiny. I like that Marty. Well, this is a great role reversal here because Marty, in some ways, he becomes the voice of reason. He becomes the wise man. Um, despite he becomes in many ways the wise man of this movie, despite him still being a youth. So again, it shows that he's taking after Doc in a lot of ways. Now I know that Marty's his big ambition is to be a rock star, but I honestly kind of wonder, because of his time traveling adventures with the Doc, I kind of wonder if Marty would become a scientist himself. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, you look like you've seen a ghost. You're not far off. Which again, this kind of echoes what we saw in part two when Marty saw the grave of his father. But obviously here it's different because it's not an alternate timeline. But his beloved Clara. Who the hell is Clara? Yeah. Oh right, sorry. That's funny. Um, Shot in the back by Buford Tannen over a matter of $80, which $80 is a lot. In 1885 money. Now I have to say, Thomas F. Wilson looks really good as a old West bad guy, nicknamed Mad Dog. Um, I have to say he looks really good as a old West bad guy. I would have loved to have seen him in like the Western miniseries Lonesome Dove, something like that. I think he would have been good in. He's done other things, but it's like this is by far his most famous one, most famous role. Yeah, William, his ancestors. Yep, there he is. McFlies, but no Browns. Emmett, yeah, another Emmett Brown. He says no. He says the Browns didn't come to Hill Valley until 1908, and then they were the Von Brauns. My father changed their name during the First World War. Which again, we get to know more about Doc than we ever got to know before. I love there's some great, synchronicity with this thing. So the clock, as we see there, it got made in 1885. And so we get to see that fateful clock. And the two of them, Doc and Marty, they even take pictures of them, a picture of themselves next to it, which is really cool. Um, Look at that. They trick it out, you know. Look at that. They pimped that ride. Um, Now that looks like, I think that's a drive-in theater, if I recall. Yeah, it is. Little bit of trivia here. So you see that poster there, Revenge of the Creature? He says he comes out. Clint Eastwood never wore anything like this. Revenge of the Creature was actually Clint Eastwood's first movie part. So that's a really great, that's an excellent bit of, paying homage there. And they do a lot of good Clint Eastwood homages here because obviously Marty calls himself Clint Eastwood when he's back in that time period. Plus, the outfits that he wears, the outfits that he wears, hoverboard, they are reminiscent of the kind of outfits that Clint Eastwood would wear in the old westerns. Yeah, they had to take him way out west. Now that looks like I don't know, is that Monument Valley? It looks an awful lot like it. Um, Monument Valley, for those who don't know, that's in this area of like the intersection of I think Utah and Arizona, and it's a spot where John Ford shot a lot of westerns. I think the first of which was Stagecoach, and most famously of which was The Searchers, and that's probably their attempt to pay homage to John Ford because, again, Steven Spielberg, this is the time when he, even as an executive producer, has a whole lot of clout and he's able to, do a lot of influential things. And, so I'm sure that's a big John Ford homage. You're not thinking fourth dimensionally. That's a saying of Doc's that I think is really that's something that I think that sounds just like him, but it unfortunately it only got introduced in this film and not in any of the other ones. It sounds just like something he would say, and I love that he's like, "I'm going to crash into those Indians," and it turns out, in fact, that when he does go back in time, that they are charging right at him. So that's a really great. I don't know. I think that's a great touch. I like that whatever that is, that big engine block or whatever on the DeLorean. I think that's really cool. Yep, here we go. Hi-Ho Silver. Does a starter pistol thing, which Marty sure could have used that pistol upon going back in time, didn't he? There he goes. Which I think, honestly, the thing that has the greatest strength in this film's favor is the fact that it is stripped down. Like, it gets back to basics. It goes, they go back, up, crashing right into him. Oh, shit. Yeah, that does look like Monument Valley, or at least very similar. But, yeah, what was I going to say? I think that the thing that's the big strength of this film is the fact that they were able to strip it down. They got back to basics with the fact that the DeLorean couldn't fly again. It was stuck on the ground, and once the car runs out of gas because of the fact that the tire or the fuel line gets punctured by an arrow or whatever it is. Oh, there you go. There's that cave there. I love the cave. Yep. Once the arrow gets punctures the fuel line or whatever, then they're out of gas and they can't go back unless they push it in front of the train, which is the whole train sequence. I think it's up there with the climax of the first one in terms of being really, really exciting. So in many ways, this has a lot of elements to it that are superior to part two. Look at that outfit. He would totally, like, I know that, people back then probably weren't as aware of, gay people and stuff, but it's like that outfit makes him look really gay. And with his, like, atomic, yeah, the atom symbols on there, it's like, oh man, he's just asking to be made fun of. And there's the cavalry doing their thing. Off they go. Which, it must have been nice to have such a change of pace, to do a different kind of movie while at the same time continuing. Oh, there you go. There's the arrow. Um, it must have been nice to have such a change of pace and to do something totally out of their wheelhouse relative to what they had been doing. So now you gotta start walking there, buddy. If they did stumble upon the car, nobody but nobody would know what to do with it. So, at the very least, they have that. Yep, rip the fuel line. At the very least, they have that on their side. And we got ourselves a bear. And what is that? Oh, that's a real bear. And then the previous shot was a person in a bear costume. Clearly, love that he's got his little tennis shoes there and all that. Um, Fun little fact there, because you see Marty, he got his outfit from the store or whatever, that themed drive-in slash Western themed place. We saw that. Now it's interesting to note that Clint Eastwood, for his first role in the spaghetti western, A Fistful of Dollars, he actually bought his jeans from like a thrift store. So that was on a budget there. But oh, there you go. Maggie, fetch some water. We got a hurt man here. Which, good to see Michael J. Fox. He's able to play a different, character outside of. He's able to play a different character outside of Marty and outside of his son. And okay, here they're not even trying anymore. They're not trying to conceal, the fact that it's so clearly not Lorraine, his mom. I dreamed I was in a western. That's funny. Yeah, they're not even trying to conceal it at this point. And I think it's because we saw this, twice before, so it's like, they don't even have to try anymore. But it's still a good bit of, bridging continuity there and all that. You're my who are you? Maggie McFly. That's great. And it's so good to see Leah Thompson do an Irish accent there. Yeah, don't you be forgetting the missus. Um, I'm a big fan of period films, and I like seeing because now the Irish. Oh yeah, I love that he has to call himself Clint Eastwood. Now it's important to notice that the Irish, were obviously a heavy immigrant population at this time. We all have. I'm sure you've seen Gangs of New York, and you saw kind of what all the Irish went through at the time period when that film is set, because that was set around Civil War time, and so you had all the shit that they were going through in a metropolitan area like New York City, let alone what they would have to go through being all the way out west there. So that's an interesting bit of historical trivia there. And then there comes Marty's ancestor there. There's a deleted or a gag reel scene where that ancestor of Marty's, where Seamus, when he comes in and he comes in with a whatever his Roger Rabbit. He comes in with a stuffed Roger Rabbit because obviously Spielberg and Zemeckis worked on that film as well. So it's a good little touch there. I really love the fact that the rabbit there that he hunted for supper, that it's got buckshot in it. Obviously, because well, that's what happens. It's pioneer times. It's the old west. They don't exactly have proper filtration or anything like that, and the water looks all dirty and crappy. So I mean, that's one thing that we in our very privileged. Yep, there you go. Still got the buckshot in there. Um, we in our very privileged positions here, in the 21st century, I think we often forget just how hard life was back then. And like the further back in time you go, you realize just how hard it was to stay alive day to day, and especially in these kind of situations where there's barely any infrastructure of any kind. And we have some good homages there with the baby there, which that's tying back to part one. The actors, the same actor interacting with himself there, that's even better in this film than it even was in part one, or part two, sorry. Got a feeling about him, Maggie. Looking after him is the right thing to do. Which I like Seamus a lot. I think he's a good guy. Look how the baby takes to him. Little Will never takes to strangers. Yeah, I think he does a good job as Seamus, and I like his Seamus as a character. I think, and Maggie, I think they both, despite being very much in the background, I think it's great to see um, Leah Thompson and Michael J. Fox. It's so great to see them really embodying those characters who, quite frankly, they're very different from Lorraine and Marty themselves. Like they're very much of different eras, and they play them that way, which is really good. And they're not, the McFlys are not exactly. They come from humble beginnings. They're not exactly, wealthy or anything. They're not exactly losers per se, like the future McFlys will be. But they don't start off on the best societal footing, you might say. And here we are, we're in Hill Valley, which is just a sleepy little pioneer town in good old California. Honest Joe Statler, fine horses sold and all that crap. Um, yeah, it's cool to see that sleepy small town that we've gotten to know. It's so great to see its humble beginnings. And so many towns in America, large or small, they all did originate this way to some degree or another. And, some towns in America, they still kind of look like this. They haven't really advanced all that much. And I'm not even counting, like, your obvious ghost towns and historical sites and all that stuff. And there you go, there's manure. Got some manure. I gotta have it for this series. Um, but yeah, Wells Fargo and Company. Um, and there's the clock tower being built. Good way to bridge continuity there. But yeah, this is very clearly a town that's just getting going. It's not established really in any way. And 1885, so California would not have been a U.S. state for that long. That would have been 30 something years, I want to say, something like that. Not very long. And there's the Wells Fargo wagon, I think. Yep. Um, yeah, so California would not have been a U.S. state for very long. Prior to that, besides the, Native American populations that would have been there long before, but you had like control over California being, it was under the control of, Spain and then eventually Mexico, and I think it was its own nation for a short time, just kind of like Texas was, for a time, and then it had only been a U.S. state for a few decades, but most towns like that, they were not very well established. So of course we gotta have a saloon scene here. You can totally tell that this is Zemeckis and Bob Gale and Spielberg and all that stuff. They're clearly having fun with the genre. They clearly love the genre. They got our prostitutes up there, which was a common feature in a lot of buildings in the Old West. Because they didn't exactly have, things were tough back then. They didn't exactly have a lot of the rules that they would have in other cities. So I like that he's like, I'll have the ice water. Yeah, they all laugh at him. That's a great touch. If you want water, son, you gotta go dunk your head in the horse trough. That's funny. In here, we pour whiskey. Love it. And Marty's still a high school kid, so obviously he hasn't, if he knows what's good for him, he hasn't exactly had the taste of liquor, but we don't know. It looked like it kind of steamed there, didn't it? Yeah. Uh-oh. Now instead of a 50s diner or an 80s diner or whatever, we have a saloon. Now, if anything, yeah, there he is. There's good old Mad Dog Tannen. Now, I would argue that Thomas F. Wilson, I would argue that he sinks into this role possibly in a more chameleonic fashion than he does in any of the other iterations of the Tanner family. And again, that's partially because he's got the outfit and the mustache and everything to help him. But he is able to evoke some of the critical aspects of a Tanner, but again, he's not playing the same character. He's playing an ancestor. He's from an older era. So that's a really good thing. Just like how Leah Thompson and Michael J. Fox, they're able to play relatives, but they are not 20th century people trying to be, transplanted into this time period. They play it like they're from the era, which is really good. That's something that does bug me in a lot of period pieces, is you'll have people that they play it as if, they're from the era in which the film is made and not from the era in which it's set. Dooted up, egg sucking gutter trash. Yeah, you gotta love those old timey insults there. You could dance better than that. And of course he does does the moonwalk there, which, he's got the right kind of shoes on to be able to do the moonwalk, so, give him credit there. I can't moonwalk, can you? That's a good touch there with the chamber pot. The spittoon, not the chamber pot. Spittoons, chamber pots, whichever, they're both equally gross. But yeah, look at him. Look at that. Look at determination there. Now, I have to say, with his character here, Mad Dog, this was of a time period where he could really be a killer and an outlaw, and it's not too... it would have been still illegal and everything, but it's not exactly shocking relative to how, the Old West was definitely, a more lawless place than we're used to today. And we get our good old-fashioned rope-a-dope here. And I have to say, poor Marty, he gets drugged through the dirt, and the if I recall, once they actually string him up, I think, if I recall correctly, Michael J. Fox was really hanging there by the rope for a bit, and there was a little worry about whether or not he would actually get strangled. So that's an interesting bit of trivia there. And this is a good way to kind of reintroduce Doc, because by this time, he's had time to get acclimatized to this period, and of course he comes at it, it's high time we had it hanging. Because he's had some time to get acclimatized to this time period, plus he comes at it from a tremendous advantage, being from the future. So you get to see him being kind of a major badass. Yeah, if I recall, he really was hanging there for a little bit, and so there was kind of a worry. And there he is. He comes in with his trench coat and his massive scope on his rifle there. Holy shit, you do not want to mess with him. I just shoot the fleas off a dog's back at 500 yards, Tannen. Which, good old Christopher Lloyd, he really gets to be a badass in this film. Love it. Which I assume that it's kind of an homage to like Doc Holliday or something, the real life Doc Holliday. Since you never pay me for the job, I say that makes us even. Which, kind of like how Biff will have car troubles in 1955, so, of course, Mad Dog Tannen has, he has horse problems. That's your problem, Tannen. That's yours. And, of course, he's our classic, Western man in black there. Someday you're going to get a bullet in your back. I like that if you look at his face is even dirty. So he looks like he's even scarier. That's a really good touch, too. Marty, I gave you explicit instructions not to come back here. Yeah. But I had to come. Well, it's good to see you, Marty. Yeah, he's clearly more in his element. He's not so much a weirdo anymore. I mean, he's a blacksmith, but he's still, you can see that he's a little bit more comfortable in this time period. What idiot dressed you in that outfit? You did. That's great. Yeah, if anything, you can tell that he's more comfortable in this time period, partially because, again, he comes at it from a tremendous advantage. Um, this beloved Clara. Yeah, so I guess that he met him, sorry, Doc met Clara in a week's time, I guess. So they must have really hit it off, like prior to Marty coming, they must have really hit it off, and fallen in love pretty hardcore. And I love, yeah, I can never take that risk for doing anything, anything too wild and crazy. And there he is, has this massive machine to make one ice cube, which is really funny. Oh, yeah, the new school teacher. That's Clara right there. And his house actually looks pretty close to how it will look in 1955, despite it looking kind of barn like. Yep, Clara Clayton. And that hat definitely suits Marty a lot better. It also looks period as well. Now we know who Clara is. The doc's gotta. The doc's gonna get his groove back, you might say. Yeah, the whole movie is basically Doc gets his groove back. When it hits you, it's like lightning. Marty, please don't say that. Oh yeah, we have to remind the audience about the fact that they left Jennifer on the porch there, which again, I'm still a little dubious about the science of that. If that would really work or not. I mean, I think it would, but that one always did kind of make me wonder. And yeah, it takes all that work to make one ice cube, and not even a great one at that. Yeah, it's pretty dirty looking. But hey, I mean, clean water was kind of a luxury. There you go. Iced tea? It's a refrigerator. There you go. Romantic infatuation. Which again, I guess that the moral of this story is that, like Marty said, that you know, it can hit you at any time. I guess. I mean, it's hasn't exactly worked out for me yet, but there's no reason to say that it couldn't. I guess if it can happen to Doc Brown, it can happen to anybody. But yeah, and there's no gas there, so they're basically stuck. Running up to 88 miles per hour. There's a great shot there with the mirror. That's a great touch. I really love shots like that where they make good use out of mirrors. So they try a couple different things. They try the horses. They try. That's where they have to get the train going. Which that just tells you the difference in technology. Yeah, even the fastest horses you couldn't get that fast. Just tells you how much technology has advanced. I mean, we broke the sound barrier in the 20th century. You know, we were able to get to all kinds of ridiculous speeds on land and air and all that stuff. And then back in 1885, that was about the best you could do. And even that, that was going pretty lightning fast. Boom. Well, now they're fucked. Well, hey, it was worth a try. I mean, alcohol has, some of the components of what you'd need for gasoline, especially like, moonshine and that kind of stuff. Yeah, they don't have a month. Which I mean, what they have to do with the train, I think, is pretty sweet. I mean, trains were. I think again, a lot of people forget with trains how prior to airplanes and everything. I mean, trains were They were the transportation mainstream at that time, largely thanks to the Intercontinental Railroad. If we could figure out a way to push it up to 88 miles per hour. Yeah, and that's where they come up with the train idea. Yeah, the Intercontinental Railroad sure did help connect east to west. Obviously, it was a massive undertaking. Now, I wonder how would this guy have measured that? He says he got her up to 55. Did they exactly have They wouldn't have had speedometers back then. They would have probably had to do it by, hand or by, measuring it in a really crude fashion, like do it from like a stable point or just do it mathematically. I like his big oil can there. Oh yeah, and here we go. We got Marty's got a serape on, and he's got a hat that looks a lot more Clint Eastwoodish. And Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and so of course we have to have Clayton Ravine. We have to have all the plot points converge all in one critical thing, critical mass where everything has to line up exactly right. And of course, Clayton Ravine, of course, Clara is supposed to fall into the ravine, and that's why it's named after her. According to this map, there is no bridge. Well, Doc, we can scratch that idea. Which I love that. Love it, love it. That's a beautiful. Look at that. That's a beautiful shot. Wherever they shot this, I assume somewhere in California. It looks beautiful. 88 miles per hour. You hit the edge of the ravine. Yeah. Otherwise, they'll just go right the hell off the edge. And coast safely across the ravine. It's a whole. It'll be a spectacular wreck. Love that. Which, again, a whole lot of ifs. A whole lot of ifs on this thing. A whole lot of stuff that has to line up all at once. But just like the first one. And poor Clara, her horses are going buck wild. Wonder how common that was. I mean, I assume if you're not all that, good with your horses or whatever, they'll go any which way, but it's a good question. Now, I know that when it came to like all three Back to the Future films had video games and stuff. Part 3 on Sega Genesis, I remembered the AVGN review of that and how it was pretty much based on this scene here with Doc on horseback, from what all he was able to play of it anyway. It was not terribly well made or well received. And there off it went, off the cliff. And it's love at first sight. And there's Mary Steenburgen there. And she's a good match for Christopher Lloyd. Sorry, I have my cat's biting my arm. And look at there, they're clicking right away. She actually looks like she could be from this period. And partially it's because they dress her really well, but yeah, they definitely hit it off. They hit it off pretty remarkably right away. And even though he knows that they gotta watch out for someone named Clara, even that, it hits him like lightning, just like Marty said. That's a beautiful little schoolhouse, isn't it? Which you can definitely see the work that went into his having gone to the health clinic or whatever, because Doc looks the most vibrant that he's ever looked in this. And that's another reason probably why they did that in part 2. It's because they wanted to try and give them more of a reason why they might be attracted to each other, because Doc in 1985 is quite a bit more old and wrinkly, even though he's got long white hair. Here he looks kind of like a more attractive older man, so I could see why she might go for him. On top of they both have Jules Verne in common, which, I guess it's important, when you're looking for a mate or whatever, to find someone with common interests, or at least enough to, where you have stuff to talk about. I love that Doc, I think what's great about this is that despite even knowing, despite even knowing that there's someone named Clara that they got to watch out for, and he's got to be wary of what all is going to happen, that he still is he's a human. He still is capable of love, and still, I'm a big fan of in stories when people even know what their future is going to be, or they even know to watch out for something, that they still are kind of subject to their emotions. I think that says a lot about human nature. That we're all still physical creatures. We're not omniscient, not at all. Clayton Ravine. Clayton Ravine was named after a teacher. Yeah, fell in there 100 years ago. That's this year. And so again, even though Doc's being a lot more responsible, relatively, compared to how responsible he was in the second one, he's being more responsible. He's even carving out a bit of a life for himself here, and seemingly doing a good job of concealing his identity and all that stuff. But even then, it's like, him being a human being, that, it's like, and Marty tries to comfort him, and is like, what if so what? They don't name the ravine after her. What, what's the worst that could happen? And Doc, the responsibility factor is really weighing on him. And I really like that, and it makes total sense at this point in the story why they would want to destroy the time machine, because it's caused so much trouble for them, and it's so risky. I do really love he's like Marty knows, it's not to scale. He knows his game by now, which again, they're able to do some really good callbacks to the previous films. But even by this point, you can kind of tell that they're like, yeah, the characters know this game by now, and we know that you know this game by now, so we're gonna cut to the chase. But again, we got some additional things that got to take place, like the track has got to change. They got to use those chemicals or whatever to increase the speed, and got to get to a certain place at a certain time, and all that stuff. So there's the point of no return there, a fail-safe point. Once we hit past this, it's the future or bust. Which, gotta be careful. Which I think the fact that they have it literally going off the cliff there, I mean, that helps to add some additional tension to this thing, because it's like they will most certainly die if they don't do this right. Beyond even the getting struck by lightning thing, which technically, that was a whole lot of stakes in the first one. I like the rudimentary electricity there that he has. Couldn't be simpler, and then all of a sudden, guess who should show up? Marty gave him a look. Because again, that happened with Lorraine in part 1. Again, good callback there. Again, it's like poetry. It's sort of, they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work. Oh yeah, I remember she gave him the telescope there. I like her outfit there. It's very kind of pinkish. Suits her. It's very buttoned up, obviously, because she's a 1885 school teacher. Interest in science. Yeah, he has to fix her telescope. They have really good chemistry, I have to say. They really, you could buy that they would fall in love with each other. Well, and he really, you can tell he's head over heels for her. And their romance is very kind of innocent, and it suits the Doc, because he's not exactly the most suave. And yet, I think he's probably the most in his element than he is even in his own time. And that says a lot. What they say about people that are like kind of nerds or who don't necessarily fit in, apparently that their confidence level is at its highest when they are able to be in their element. And it's when they're not trying that they have the best chance of catching a mate, or so I'm told. I mean, I have not yet had the pleasure of, finding one that would last, but, the few times that I have, at least briefly, it has come about through, some similar circumstances. Nothing quite, what it would take to last, I guess, but trying not to get overly therapeutic with this thing. Nice telescope. Yeah, again, Marty gets to be the voice of reason this time, which I think is really, really cool. And yeah, they got to dedicate the clock there. And this is where we get a cameo by ZZ Top, which they were big in the 80s, early 90s. And yeah, this is the only installment in the series that takes place, or it was made in the 90s, but it's still heavily entrenched in 80s culture and iconography in terms of its place in society. But yeah, that's pretty cool to see it's fitting that you and I were here to witness this, yeah. Too bad I didn't bring my camera. Oh, and there it is. There's the camera. I like that they... That's funny. Yeah, I love that they're just like, screw it, Won't be able to show it to anybody. That's right. Yeah, they're like, after all this shit we've been through, we gotta do something. And yeah, there's ZZ Top. They actually fit into the time period really nicely. I mean, they already kind of look like they were a part of it with their massive pre-Duck Dynasty beards and everything. But yeah, they fit into this time period well. And the way that they are able to pay homage to that is that they do the guitar flip thing that they were known for. What a great music. It's got a beat and you can dance to it, which, it's a little cutesy, but I don't know. I thought it was funny. And this, of course, was set up in part 2 with the Wild Gunman arcade game, and so you see Marty's a good shot. And good old Doc, he's spying her from across the room and thinking that she looks like a fine young thing. He's going for it. Which I do like the song that ZZ Top plays in here. She has a nice smile. Aww. Just sweet to see them interact. But they're also kind of awkward. I suspect that she's not really much in the way of flirting either. Yeah, she's just going for it. They're just hitting it off like grease hits the skillet, as they say. I like this guy. He's got a good shit eating grin there. Which again, Marty gets to take somewhat of a back seat here because you get to see Doc really getting his groove on, and that's kind of nice. Look at that face. The Doc can dance, because he's never seen Doc Brown do anything remotely like this before. That guy reminds me a bit of the guy in the beginning of Blazing Saddles. It's like, I'm in a song, a real song. That guy. It reminds me of him. And I love that you think Marty's never shot a gun before, but of course, we know that he's a crack shot at Wild Gunman. And that's a good touch for the period there, because again, gun salesmen were very they were very prominent back then, because people sure did need their firearms to keep from getting killed by wild animals or each other. Just tell me one thing. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? 7-Eleven. I love that line. Could be my favorite line in the movie, actually. And, of course, we have to have Mad Dog come and spoil the party. Of course. Which, something like... this is a really good touch here, the check all firearms thing. This is something that... oh, there you go. There's Strickland's ancestor right there. Marshall Strickland. That actor, he works into this time period really well, and I love his, what are those called, mutton chops? Yeah, he looks awesome in this time period. I would love to see the two of them in like another Western. I think that would look really good. They'd look really good. Now, the point I was going to make was that the check all firearms thing, that was actually very accurate to the period because most towns, just as a matter of necessity, obviously, because of, ruffians and bad guys like Mad Dog Tannen running around, um, because of that, a lot of towns, they did have those firearm rules like that. They'd have to surrender them upon entering the premises. And you saw that in Unforgiven also. They make a big point of that. Discipline. I will, Pa. Yeah, he fits that time period really nicely. But yeah, that's kind of a problem with some other westerns that you see is that they don't really enforce that rule quite the way that they should. Um, a fine hat. Which, yeah, I think Marty looks pretty awesome in that outfit. Frisbee, far out. That's funny. Because Frisbee, as we know, they did. What was the meaning of that? It was right in front of him. As we know, Frisbee, they got their name from having made. They were the Frisbee Pie Company, but of course, then they made the Frisbee toy, and the rest is history. Good touch there. But yeah, the that's something that other westerns didn't really touch on. The fact that a lot of towns had that law to surrender firearms precisely for this reason, because there was a lot of badniks running around. And I love he's got that teeny tiny gun there with the one bullet thing, which I think a lot of prostitutes actually had guns like that, just for self protection and all that, and because they were discreet. I told you to watch your back, Smithy. Small but effective. Took him 2 days today. Oh shit. But yeah, I mean those bullets are not very big, but like you said, it would be a slow death, slow and painful. Looky what we have here. I would like to see Christopher Lloyd in a western too. I wonder if he's done any other ones. I'll have to look that up. Now, despite Mad Dog being probably the most consistently menacing iteration of the Tannins outside of alternate 1985 Biff, he does have his comic moments also. Like, woo! When he's dancing. That's funny. And of course, he's a total scumbag, of course. And she kicks him in the shin. Which I'm sure that Mad Dog probably has partaken in many of the local prostitutes. Ah, damn you. Oh, shit. Go. And I just realized also the cigarette, the match case in alternate 1985, that was a good setup for this. And this was an actual Frisbee there. Frisbee pie tin, but still. That was a good setup. And of course, what is it? You're yellow? So we're continuing that plot point from part 2. This is the advantage of doing your movies back to back, is because all these little plot points, you can make sure to that you match them up really nicely. And I like the fact that it's a variety of, it's not him chicken, it's, calling him yellow, because that's a very, period insult there. Marshall's got our guns. Like I said, we'll finish this tomorrow. Tomorrow we're having the Pine City State. What about Monday? Are you doing anything Monday? Have to schedule him. That's great. Settle this then. Right there, out in the square. Yeah, gotta do our classic high noon showdown there. High noon? I do my killing before breakfast. 7 o'clock. Love it. 8 o'clock. I do my killing after breakfast. which you can tell that that's Marty trying to do his best Clint Eastwood there, which I wonder what the real Clint Eastwood might have thought about this. I assume he was very flattered, but because like they did that cute like Ronald Reagan thing in the first one. I think word got back to Reagan and he overall liked it, but he wasn't thrilled with like mentioning of his first wife, which obviously that must have had a lot of emotional baggage and stuff. I don't know how yep, there you go, you did the guitar flip there. Which I assume the real Clint Eastwood was probably flattered by. You would shoot you down like a duck. It's dog. We shoot him down like a dog, which, of course, he's still a fucking idiot. I don't know. That caught me off guard this time. What if the train's late? We'll discuss this later. And of course, this is where Marty starts to kind of re-enter the film's narrative a little bit, because he did kind of take a bit of a sideline there to let Doc, take center stage to find his lady and all that. But then now, of course, Mr. Eastwood is, taking center stage there. Cold Peacemaker and gun belt free of charge. I love what he says there. Was like, if you die, I'm taking it back. If you lose, I'm taking it back. Love it. That's a great touch. Thanks again. You had him, Mr. Eastwood. You could have just walked away and nobody would have thought the less of you for it. Which you see a little bit of that McFly spinelessness, but again, it's not anywhere near as obnoxious as it would later become, or nearly as, problematic. Oh yeah, Martin. And Martin McFly. Had a brother. Which again, look at how seamless this is. They might as well be two separate people, but man, their eye lines match up and everything. It's kind of unreal. Considering the future, Mr. Eastwood. I love her, Leah Thompson's face. It looks very kind of stern. It looks very appropriate, because a lot of people at that, excuse me, a lot of people at that time, like if you've ever looked at old photographs of people from that period, they definitely had stern faces, because the life was obviously a lot harder back then, so there was a lot less to smile about. But she clearly did her homework as far as like just the overall face that they had back then. But yeah, you see some of that McFly, hot-headedness crossed with the spinelessness. So they've kind of got it bad on both fronts. And here we go. We see them falling in love. Space vehicles, capsules, rockets. Yeah, he's trying so hard to open up and show his real colors. Like you see him, you see the boy inside of him. I read that book too. Oh, I love that. Jules Verne, From the Earth to the Moon. You can see that again. Doc really seems to come alive in this. Like he really, you almost get the sense that like he himself has kind of become a teenager again. Like he's learning from Marty in the same way that Marty's learning from him, and you see him really come alive in this. And again, their chemistry makes a lot of sense to me. I wonder, I don't know what Mary Steenburgen's been up to, but I know Christopher Lloyd has been in like a ton of movies, most of which, not Shooting Star. And not the DreamWorks moon there, kind of I forget what stage of moon that is. It's not quite full, but it's not half moon either. It's like a 3/4 moon. Not the DreamWorks moon, though. Not quite yet. I love that it's got like a primitive breakfast machine. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd. This was probably his defining role, if I had to guess. I mean, this one and his role in like Taxi and in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and stuff like that. But I think he'll forever be associated with Doc Brown, and it's a great role to be associated with. Same with Michael J. Fox being forever associated with Marty McFly. Have a little. Uh, did Doc not come home last night? I wonder why. Might have been getting his groove on. And we have a good little Taxi Driver homage with him, yep, love it. You talking to me? You talking to me, Tannen? Which is funny because that's not at all a Clint Eastwood movie. It's Robert De Niro, but still, I could totally buy. Well, now that, go ahead and make my day. That is Clint Eastwood, but that's Dirty Harry. It's not a Western. But that's at least a little bit more on point there. I like that everybody is treating him nice because they assume he's just going to die. So they're, trying to make his last days on Earth very nice. Oh, that cigar there, actually, that's a good Clint Eastwood homage because Clint Eastwood had those kinds of cigars in the Sergio Leone westerns all the time. And in other ones like Two Mules for Sister Sarah and that kind of stuff. And Clint Eastwood was a non-smoker, but he thought that having the cigar in his mouth would kind of help give him that ickiness in his mouth to kind of put him in character, which, oh boy, there's good old Doc. He's got a spring in his step because he probably did some looking at the stars, if you know what I mean. There's the tombstone there. That's what happens when Marty sticks his nose where it doesn't belong. Yep. Only his name is erased. The tombstone itself and the date still remain. Because it may be his. Which again, during this movie's theory of time travel is the idea that, there's always like a possibility. There seems to be a certain degree of like possibility or probability that certain things will unfold. Because again, this adheres to the idea of one singular linear timeline. Great Scott! I know this is heavy, which again, that's one of my favorite moments because again, it shows that they're learning from each other, and they're really they're becoming more like each other, and the friendship really helps them both as people. The accident in the future. Doc let something slip. It might make things worse. What's wrong with my future? Which Doc should have told him. Gotta do what you've gotta do. I've gotta do what I've gotta do. Yeah. Doc should have told him. I mean, if he was gonna bring him back to the future in the first place, to 2015, he should have. Yeah, well, that's actually a good question. Why didn't he? Take him to tell him about? I don't know. Doc was getting carried away. This is actually a really critical scene here because Doc realizes that he's in love with Clara, and he's willing to make a big sacrifice to stay there and to live out the rest of his life in this simpler time. The future isn't written. It can be changed, you know that. Which, look at him, he's kind of, anyone can make their future whatever they want it to be, which that is a pretty key theme that, talk about themes, that's a theme that is introduced in here that, for all of this rational scientist, that he's still, again, he's a vulnerable human being, and that what's the right thing to do up here? He's someone that he's still a fragile human being, and he's still, despite knowing all these things that he knows, he still, realizes that he's still a human being, and he still wants to be able to chart his own destiny and everything. And I think that's a really, in a way, that's a very mature decision on his part because, he probably could stay in that time period and he could live out a nice little life with her. Um, and, he probably would have been happy. But again, I don't know if it necessarily would have worked, just like Marty said. And it does kind of make you wonder because, well, but again, the key theme there is the fact that, yeah, the key theme there is that, what gets reinforced later is that your future is what you make of it, so make it a good one. And I guess that's partially because, again, they have to destroy the time machine only for Doc to somehow, which I like that he just says, take Clara with us. I would think it might be easy to get her acclimatized to things. I don't know. I'm not sure which would be easier. Let's be scientific about this. I must do no less. Yeah. But yeah, he's trying to be mature about it, but again, it's gonna destroy his heart. But I do like that Marty suggests taking Clara with him because she's a smart enough person for her time period. She could probably make it work. Which of course, she and the Doc both they end up having a time machine of their own, which I still don't really understand, like how they're able to invent the parts necessary. Actually, no way, I do remember because they used parts of the wrecked. No, they don't. Sorry, my memory of this movie is kind of fuzzy as I'm realizing it. Which again, very heartbreaking scene here. She's letting her hair down and everything. She's ready for another nice evening with the Doc. And again, Mary Steenburgen, she really acclimatizes into this period really nicely. And I like that Doc actually tells her the truth. And of course, she doesn't believe him, but, he does try. He tries to be honest with her. Again, they played these scenes really nicely. And again, she's willing to risk it all there with him. And I really think this is Christopher Lloyd's best performance as the Doc. I think he really gets to show a lot of depth of emotion and character. Well, he tries. You can't blame him for not trying. Back to the year 1985. Although for her side of things, it's like, I can't exactly blame, her reaction. Wonder how many guys have used that line on her. For some whoppers in my day, the fact that you'd expect me to entertain a notion like that is so insulting and degrading. I said, I don't love you and I don't want to see you anymore. I would have at least been respectful, which, that's not the truth. Which, hey, he tried. He really did try. Yeah, I think it's kind of a twofold situation because this film, like, I think it takes its time to breathe. It takes its time to have, more drama and everything. The other one, I think, did have a brisker pace and it had more going on and it never really gave you a chance to get too settled. And for better or for worse, because again, when this movie gets kind of, it's not that it drags or anything. It's just more so that, like, we know where we're at in the franchise at this point, and we kind of know where we're going. So, you do kind of. I think that's partially why they kept us in this time period, and partially why they try to introduce as many new things as possible to kind of help to get out of the possible mundanity or the been there, done that kind of aspect. And poor Doc, his heart's broken, and he's. I don't think he necessarily can hold his liquor all that well. I don't think he's used to drinking. I like this guy. The bowler hats, if I recall, were actually more common back then than even the traditional cowboy hats. Because a Googleplex lost her for all time, which, I've been there. I'm sure there are other women. Oh, peddling this. Yeah, he's a barbed wire salesman. You never know what the future might bring. The future, I can tell you about the future. Love it. I love seeing Doc all, drunk and everything, and he's, telling them about the future, and they all are like, what the hell are you talking about, you crazy old man? And one of those actors in that upcoming bar scene, his voice, he's a very... Let me look up who that is. That actor, he's the guy who says, these auto watches, doesn't anybody ever walk or run anymore? That guy. He's a very famous voice actor who you may recall as the Bloodhound in the Aristocats. He's the one who goes, wait a minute, I'm the leader. I'll say it when we go. Here we go. That's the guy. Yeah, here's old Doc. He's all wasted, and he's trying to tell everybody about the future, and they're just... Yeah, there he is. He's got one of the best voices of all time. So distinct. For fun? What the hell kind of fun is that? Come on, Marty. You gotta save the Doc again, but you gotta save him from himself this time. I wonder what all goes into that wake-up juice that Doc has to drink. I mean, and I think bartenders kind of have each bartender, I'm sure, kind of has the... None, that's the first one. He hasn't even touched it yet. I love it. Just likes to hold it. That's funny. Act's all wasted, but he's just all heartbroken. There's nothing left for me here. Back to the Future. Trailer line there. Which... Poor old Doc. He can't hold his liquor at all. Love it, love it. Falls face first into the table. Just the one. Just the one. Come on, Doc. Yeah, no shit. It's a great gag there. In many ways, Doc is sort of... you kind of get the sense that he's a little bit in Arrested Development. Not the show. You kind of get the sense that he's someone who never really quite grew up in certain avenues, because he's still, kind of got puppy love with Clara, and he, doesn't really hold his liquor much. He seems like he's still kind of trapped in some way. Again, you see Marty is more the wise man in this one, and you see the Doc, you see him kind of growing up all over again. It's a priest on Sunday. It looks like they had some peppers and stuff in that wake-up juice. Yeah, I think every bartender in America probably has their own equivalent of that. It doesn't look pleasant, though. Yeah, it looks like some hot peppers and shit. I wonder if any of you have been... Love it. If any of you have ever been really hungover or whatever, I wonder if you've had to It's just a reflex action. Yeah, if you've ever been really drunk or hungover, have you ever had to have your own equivalent of wake up juice? I'm sure you have. That's a great shot right there. That's a very Western shot right there. With I love her purple dress too, and the steam and the camera's face and all that stuff, or in the lens. Yeah, that whole shot right there, that could totally be in a Western that wasn't involving time travel. Which again, look at that. I mean, the level of integration of Michael J. Fox as Marty versus Seamus, like the integration is so excellent that it's like you would swear that they were like twins acting alongside each other. It's even more seamless than in the second one. And that was just they filmed them back to back, so it's like they must have just gotten better between movies or at the same time or whenever they were editing it or whatever, because like again it's seamless. And again, this was CGI was pretty rudimentary. And we gotta have our showdown with our villain, who we haven't seen him. We haven't seen him in a while. Here lies Clint Eastwood. And see, Marty's got to learn how to not be a hothead. Now that's something that we touched on in part one. The fact that Marty, his tendency to be a hothead. What's that mean? Yeah, his tendency to be a bit of a hothead, I'm sure, is somewhat of a reaction to his father being so spineless. Yeah, Marty's got to really dig down deep. He's got to be a man. Well, he's got to be brave, but he's also got to be not stupid, and that's kind of it's a critical balance. I love this guy's voice. I could listen to it all day. Everybody, everywhere, will say that Clint Eastwood was the biggest yellow belly in the West. Yep, see? Seriously, I could hear him all day. And of course, he can't count. But I like that. That's a great shot, too. Yeah, but you see, Seamus is looking at him like he doesn't want him to be lost to him, just like his brother was. Which there's a lot of tension in the air with this because it's like Marty's got to really make a choice there because it's like this is a big deal for him. Oh, I love his awful teeth. Look at that. His teeth look horrible. He's an asshole. Love that. Can't nobody else says either. And just at that moment, Doc wakes up. But yeah, that's a really critical character arc there for Marty that's been building up over this whole trilogy. Uh-oh. Now again, planting and payoff between movies there. We saw the clip from A Fistful of Dollars there, another Clint Eastwood film, and Marty gets the idea to throw old Biff off Mad Dog off the trail there with the bulletproof vest idea. That purple really suits her. And there's our barbed wire salesman there. He looks very period, doesn't he? And they got Doc. What's he gonna do? Now, again, similar to the first one, we have all these things that all have to line up all at a specific time, and we've already got some delays. Come on, Marty, you gotta be brave. Well, you gotta not be a hothead, but you gotta not be a coward either. So, again, this is one of those things that he's got to learn how to not be one of those two extremes. Clara's gotta go get him. Which she had to be that person to pull the emergency brake. Although luckily this time they don't have to catch a. They have to catch a train, but they don't have to catch a lightning bolt at a specific time, do they? So they at least have that on their side. Which Marty was able to learn from the master, Clint Eastwood, which Clint Eastwood's a good one to learn from in a whole bunch of ways, particularly if you're in this time period. You can tell that they love the genre because they're doing all the classic camera shots. They're doing all the classic, poses and everything. I looked up the American Film Institute's list of westerns, and if wasn't this one of the nominees for that list? I feel like it might have been, or maybe I'm just crazy. I can't remember. Which this is good for Marty to be able to try to settle this like men, to I assume maybe do a fist fight or something, but. Yeah, he says you fought wrong. Thought wrong, dude, which, sorry, it's not on the nominees list for the top 50 westerns. Which, look at that face. He's such a shit-eating bastard. But, yeah, so he uses dude as an insult there, and dude, obviously, at that time meant, like, a farmer, like a country bumpkin, basically. Which, if anything, that kind of bullying mentality, that kind of showboating behavior, that suits Mad Dog even better than Biff. Because the West was full of all kinds of criminals and drunks, and and yeah, I like that. Which that thing's pretty thick, so bam. I think we could buy that could stop a bullet there. And yeah, it's good to see that, Marty kicks his ass there. That's a good way to finally set them Tanners straight on a more personal level. And he's setting a good example for Seamus, his ancestor. And yeah, ick. That shit's green, too. Probably because of all the grass that they're eating. That was good. Yeah, it's probably green because of all the grass. Some friends they are. Taking off running. Get him out of that shit. Love it. And of course, we gotta cap it off with, he hates manure. Got anything to say? I hate manure. And he's got a mouthful of shit, too, which is even grosser. It's a good way to cap off that little plot point. Yeah, I gotta cut him off at the pass, which, Oh yeah, he gives it to Seamus. I like Seamus. Maybe I'll trade it for a new hat. He likes his hat, doesn't he? Yeah, I like Seamus. He's a good character. Now, this whole climax here, it has a lot of good good twists and turns here, a lot of good elements that that put it similarly to the first one. But I mean, the first one again was such a and like Time Machine. The first one had such a perfect sense of tension that it's again hard to replicate, but this one manages to up the stakes in certain areas because again they have to push this thing along the train path there. Now it's weird because it's like it is kind of a great train robbery of sorts, much like the classic silent short film, The Great Train Robbery, which kind of laid the groundwork for every Western that was yet to come. But it's more of train. Well, I guess it is kind of a train robbery, but you're robbing the train itself, not what the goods that are on the train. So it's actually a train robbery in the truest sense of the term. And in this particular climax, we get to pull out all the stops here because we've got an Old West train, we've got the futuristic, Time Machine DeLorean, we've got the even more futuristic hoverboard that gets, implemented. We got Clara in the mix. We got it all going on. So, I mean, as far as, this actually has more different things going on while still evoking the spirit of the first one. Even more so than, say, Return of the Jedi, which, Return of the Jedi, they had to do the Death Star again. Now, granted, they had a lot more going on, but the crux of it was still the Death Star has to be blown up again. And, yeah, they still have to go back to the future, but there's a whole lot more in the way of variables, I think. And look at that, they have their masks on. They were trendsetters, long before we all had to wear masks like that. Talk about foretelling the future. And now they gotta rob the train there. Well, is this a hold-up? It's a science experiment. That's a great line there. Kind of reminds you of the Hogwarts train, doesn't it? But it's not hauling young wizards and witches and all kinds of crazy shit. It's just got Doc and Marty. Now, I'll be honest, I have not yet watched Rick and Morty, which I know that they take off of Doc and Marty, even up to their names. And yeah, they let the cargo go so that way they can go faster. Yeah, I have not watched Rick and Morty yet, and I know that it kind of, from what I understand, it kind of does its own thing. But it clearly, has a lot of homages to Doc and Marty. Wanted to do that all my life. Yeah, there's a good old Doc. He's really kind of becoming a kid again in many ways. Which, yeah, I mean, now he was, so he is old in 1985, and then his father, like I said, that they were the Von Brauns, and they came over in, whatever he said, 1908, something like that. And here they go. They got to hook it up to the front of the train, and yeah, what are those? Anthracite dust. There you go. Well, I could never remember exactly what those things were. I mean, I knew that they were chemically treated, but I couldn't remember the exact combination. But, yeah, obviously it's meant to make them cook off sequentially there. Because, again, keeping things hot and keeping things cold was quite a challenge back then. He looks good as a train conductor, doesn't he? And Marty still looks good with that serape and his coverboard and all that. But of course, Clara's got to come along. Which that does bring up something I haven't talked about, which is the posters of the films. There's a remarkably good continuity of posters. You have the very famous one with, Marty looking at his watch on the DeLorean, and then the second one, it's Marty with the future costume and Doc with the future costume, and then the third poster it's Doc and Marty in their Old West costumes, and it's Clara, all lined up. It's a remarkably consistent poster, same font, same general composition. I do kind of miss that with posters, the idea of them having kind of a good sense of continuity. The closest would be like the Marvel films and like Star Wars. They tend to, have a relatively, consistent composition. Sometimes a little too consistent, but, it lets you know. Oh, it happens after we hit 2000. The whole boiler explodes. Yeah, now you tell him. Which again, that's another thing that we gotta keep in mind. Um, but yeah, that's always nice whenever your movie poster has like some consistency. I wonder if anybody has ever tried to make a train go this fast, or if you even could. You probably could, but this seems like a Mythbusters thing, doesn't it? In fact, for all I know, they've probably covered it. And I'm sure you probably could. I like the smoke changes colors too, like it's green. That just looks weird. For all I know, that green smoke could be like that green smoke could be like pot smoke or something. Kind of looks like it. Golly. Yeah, as far as a finale sequence, this is cut together pretty well. But of course, things are never as simple as they appear, because, you know, Clara gets all knocked about. Nice that she calls him Emmett, because we're not really used to hearing Doc's actual first name. Because Marty always just calls him Doc. And as far as the climax is, like, this is actually relatively low tech compared to the other one. Now, I mean, they have to, it's a lot of doing with, them having to be on the train tracks and everything, but it's not anywhere near as special effects heavy as it was in the last one. Aww. Yeah, see, she gets it. Clara, perfect. Come on, Doc, you can do it. Which, hey, I mean, good for her that she went after him. I mean, I think that says a lot about Clara. Yeah, Clara's got some guts, despite, being kind of a buttoned-up school teacher from that period. And again, I can totally buy why she would be interested in Doc. I'm sure it was, like, I know that, like, people like Kevin Smith have talked about, like, how uncommon it was to find geeks prior to the internet. I can only imagine, and that was back in, like, 70s, 80s. I can only imagine how horrific it was to, be a proto geek at the time of, like, Jules Verne, which was, like, besides, like, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is kind of the birth of science fiction as we know it, Jules Verne was kind of commonly called the father of science fiction, and for good reason. So, I mean, think about that. Think about how uncommon and weird you would be at that time to be a proto geek, you might say. They make good use of the hoverboard here. And oh shit. Holy shit. I love that the DeLorean is up in the air there. That's pretty nuts. I also like that the door of the DeLorean is open for most of this, which, it kind of makes you wonder, shouldn't they have closed that to reduce wind resistance? But I don't know. It's probably not all that crazy. He's probably like, the what? Because that Doc doesn't really know about the hoverboard. The 1955 Doc barely knows about it. Oh, shit. But yeah, this is a good climax as far as it evokes the spirit of the first one, but it's not at all, it doesn't have the same variables. And again, it's, not no explosions. And, well, we had one with the logs going off and stuff, but, which, yeah, lucky his foot slipped right in there. But, and it's also cool to see Doc Brown on the hoverboard. That's something we've never seen before. I gotta remember how Doc and Clara, like, how they were able to make another time machine out of the train. I can't remember exactly. That's a good shot there. Yeah, that composite shot never really... That hasn't really aged all that well, but, there are actually fewer of those in this one. This one's one of the lower tech installments. Which, again, is kind of back to basics relative to, like, the first one. The second one, you feel like they got a lot of their technological toys, out of the way. And now we got an awesome train going over the cliff shot here. That must have been fun to shoot. And it's flaming, too, before it even hits the ground. How do you like that? Okay, now you talk about your... Okay, I talked about, it's a climax without explosions and stuff. Well, okay, you got one. And that's a pretty darn good one, all things considered. Because, again, modern climaxes, they tend to overuse explosions and stuff to where there's not a whole lot of, newness to it. Not a whole lot of surprise anymore. But that one most definitely... that's earned, I think. And I love that it's Eastwood Ravine. Which, again, it does kind of make you wonder, like, and that would obviously precede the real-life Clint Eastwood in this world. So I wonder if everybody that knows Clint Eastwood in this timeline, if they think that it's named after an ancestor of his. Look at them. They're like, what the fuck? Is this some kind of new train that we don't know about? That's pretty cool that they... Uh-oh. Which, yeah, I remember his whole goal was to destroy the time machine, so they had to... Wow, he just barely got out of that. Yeah, I remember when I first started this, I forgot how the hoverboard, I remembered that now that Doc obviously got the hoverboard. Now, I would assume that the hoverboard, with him having successfully gotten back to the future, I would assume that the hoverboard either... I wonder if the hoverboard disappears from existence or if it remained. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know if we ever see the hoverboard again. I don't think we do. But yeah, he destroyed it. And that always kind of, to a certain extent, that kind of made me sad because I was like, I loved that car so much, as do we all. But at the same time, what Doc said was absolutely right. It's just too dangerous to be playing around with. It's destroyed. Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's just, it was just too dangerous. But then again, that does make you wonder, like, with them having made that other time-traveling train and all that shit, like, how in the hell did they do that? Which, again, I gotta remember exactly what his reasoning is. And one of my other lines that sticks out here that doesn't make a whole lot of sense... Watch it, Biff. Yeah, because he knows what Biff is really made of these days. Yeah, he knows what Biff's really made of. Which, and there's all of his family and stuff. And I like that he's... One of the lines that I think is hilarious is that he says, you guys are all back to normal. Except that, guess what? The normalcy for him would have been the loser versions, not these, fancy schmancy nice versions that he got back at the ending of the first one. Yeah, so I always thought that line kind of struck me as a little weird, but again, I guess it's sort of his new normal that he is wanting to accept. And there's Jennifer. She's all conked out, and because they left her in the alternate 1985, and I guess when the timeline reset, then, you know, which again, that I'm still a little shaky on that, but uh, time travel isn't even possible. So I mean, I'm complaining about little, but which hey, if your man woke you up and he was dressed like that, I mean, I wonder if you would get a little excited about that. I don't know. Ladies, tell me. And unfortunately, Elizabeth Shue didn't get as much to do in this one, obviously, because she was, back in uh, Worst Nightmare. Um, which for a time you think, oh, that she's gonna do just like what Doc said and think it was all a dream. About the future. And there he is. He's driving that 4x4 that he wanted so badly. Oh yeah, Hilldale. That's where they live, and that's a nice little place. Well, and you gotta love that Jennifer's just like wasn't it? You gotta love that Jennifer is hearing him say stuff like that, and it's just kind of a given, and she's not like, we should probably see other people, because after all the shit that they've been through, she's like, I don't know about this. That's what I'd be thinking. What's the matter, chicken? And I like that you hear the power of love again. That's a good touch. And you think he's going to backslide. You think he's going to not learn that which he learned before. And this is, which again, why, if Doc was, wanting to, help Marty in any way, he would tell him about this rather than taking him, to worry about his future. But then again, I kind of wonder, like, well, okay, so Doc clearly knew about the accident, but I guess he didn't want to fuck up his own future too much because of his thinking about, the one should never know too much about their own destiny thing. I don't know. I would just think if you were Doc and you cared about, your friend, that you'd tell him about this event, which is really the critical juncture. And of course, here's the "you're fired" thing, which thankfully that gets undone. And of course, Marty thankfully is able to level with Jennifer that no, indeed, it was not a dream, because again, that was always such a lame excuse. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've never liked that as a storytelling device. It's like, come on, people would never think it was all just a dream. Oh yeah, and there's the picture. Now, how long would it have taken to get that developed? Only, actually, I think that's the picture that he got from 1955, Doc. Although, nevertheless, it does kind of make you wonder how long it would take to get that picture developed back then. Probably a long time. Now, let's see if we can remember exactly how they were able to make this ultra fancy... Man, hey, the Hogwarts train can't compete with this shit. Holy fuck. I mean, that is like steampunk level awesome. Except it can time travel and fly. Oh yeah, it runs on Steam. Which, now so every steampunk person in the world is like freaking the fuck out about that. And okay, I do think that's a little weak, because I don't think Steam could be that good, but, who the hell knows? I mean, it's just kind of a cool way to see, it's just kind of cool to see the fact that he and, Clara got to have a happy life amongst, had to come back for Einstein. Yeah, I guess that he, I really have no clue how in the hell he could have invented another flux capacitor, but then again, he is the Doc. I mean, who knows? He could have probably figured something out. Well, hey, if he got it to run on Steam, then, you know, I don't know, that's I'm calling bullshit on that a little bit, but it's still I like the fact that he comes back to pay him another visit. Now it's erased. I think, of course, it's yeah. This to me, this is where the whole series really comes into focus here. Your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one, both of you. Which, yeah, I think that really, that kind of says it all, you know, that nobody can, you know, even with a time machine, it's like you have to, yeah, you know, you have to make it the future what you make of it. Back to the Future? No, already been there. So I would assume, therefore, that they probably live out their lives in the past. I don't really know, but again, it's meant to be deliberately, you know, vague, you know, because it's the idea that they're free now to do whatever, which, again, that train is really badass, I have to say. That's probably the baddest ass train of all time. And, of course, you know, it comes right at the camera just like the last one. And that, boys and girls, was Back to the Future, the entire trilogy. Really, really solid stuff. Felt like I didn't have as much to say about that one. Mostly I was just letting it play out. Like I think it I don't know, it manages to hit all the right notes of a, you know, number 3 film. I think it manages to tie the rest of the series together. It manages to overcome the number 3 curse by having enough new stuff to it, and it ends the series in a nice, neat little bow. And not to mention the fact that, again, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis have ensured that there won't be any more. And obviously, you know, with Michael J. Fox having contracted Parkinson's, that would make it very difficult. But even that being what it is, it's like, the fact that the series is able to preserve its virginity, I think, is really important. So, yeah, that was a great series. Hopefully you enjoyed all 3 commentary tracks on that. Hopefully you had a fun time watching it with me. I'm going to go back and I'm going to assess what all I have in the collection, and I'll figure out what other topics I want to cover. Again, I'm going to try and do these once a week, and I'm going to try to cover off some other aspects of filmmaking to hopefully help give you, the emerging generations of filmmakers, the tools you need to make your cinematic dreams come true. I am Dane Kyle. This has been No Money Film School, and I will say good night.